So I've been working on my authorization service, and it's totally sweet. It's only taken me 6 months to build it. Just 6 months. I started implementing some basic RBAC library, but that wasn't enough, obviously. So I designed relationship-based, fine-grained authorization for the highest security possible. And then, to make it super fast, I used a GPU tower, running in my mom's basement, of course, connected via optic cable to bare metal server at my local esports lounge, permissions, restrictions, and admin. Nailed it.
Wait. Whatever you did sounds cool, but there's also another option.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with Permit.io. Permit is the full-stack authorization platform created so you never have to build permissions again. Build and manage permissions for any application with policy as code, APIs, developer-friendly SDKs, and user-facing UIs. Permit is an end-to-end authorization platform built on top of open-source policy engines. It's high-performing, gets decisions in less than 10 milliseconds, and uses a hybrid approach where config is in the cloud, but data and decisions are made locally. Not only is it intuitive, it lets you implement fully functional authorization in 5 minutes, not 6 months, and in the code base you prefer. Check out the link in the show notes or go to permit.io to learn more. That's permit.io. Sign up for Permit and stop rebuilding auth.
We're in the year of 2006. The tools that existed then are not the tools that today, or maybe the reverse is true. There are many tools today that if I was starting out now, I would use that didn't exist. You're basically working with what was at that point second generation web technologies. So what we did is the first MVP was a traditional web application. That was one of the things we identified, is that most of the legacy tools in our space were mostly client server. These were installed desktop apps you had to install. At this point, nothing's being cloud hosted. Everything's being self-installed. So we needed a technology stack that was one that could be easy for a customer to install on the server without necessarily being a system admin. My name is Adam Sandman. I'm the CEO and founder of Inflectra.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to
took
do next.
many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their back.
The company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve. I was proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was
Yes, we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time. The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it
you.
off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want it. Not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story. I'm your host, Noah Labhart, and today how Adam Sandman is building quality at its core, helping business-critical systems deliver on their mission. This episode is sponsored by Kiteworks. Legacy-managed file transfer tools lack proper security, putting sensitive data at risk. With Kiteworks MFT, companies can send automated or ad hoc files in a fully integrated, highly secure manner. The solution is FedRAMP Moderate authorized by the Department of Defense and has been so since 2017. Step into the future of secure managed file transfer with Kiteworks. Visit kiteworks.com to get started. This episode is sponsored by ClearQuery. ClearQuery is the analytics for humans platform. With their full suite of features, you can go from data ingestion to automated insights seamlessly. With Ask ClearQuery, you can find valuable insights into your data using plain English. Don't miss the opportunity to simplify your data analytics with ClearQuery. Get started today at clearquery.io/codestory. Adam Sandman grew up in Wales in the United Kingdom. He went to university to study physics because he had a fascination and desire to understand how things in the world worked. It was during this time that he ended up falling in love with tech and has been in the industry ever since. But outside of tech, he's married with older children. He mentioned he was a scoutmaster in the past, which he really enjoyed how the scouts were led by the scouts themselves. In the past, Adam realized that there were not great tools out there for QA testing. He noticed a lot of people were using Excel and Word, along with manual testing through the industry. Given his experience as a project manager and architect, he saw an opportunity in the market and set out to build a solution. This is the creation story of Inflectra.
Reflector as a company is devoted to helping customers release software and software-enabled systems at high quality, at speed, and at scale. When I say that, what it really means is that you can release things fast and efficiently, but you don't have problems in them. And too often today, we see a lot of companies, they want to release software faster than their competitors to get market share or because they have a new product that's going to change the market. And in this quest for speed, they often sacrifice quality. What we believe is that that's a false trade-off. You don't have to trade off speed for quality. You can have both. And so our platform, which is a software platform to help you build software, test software, plan and manage, it allows companies, and typically we're working with actually medium to large companies. So think of a water utility, an electricity company, life science company making medical devices or pharmaceutical products. These are the mission critical companies that we work with. They're releasing software often under the radar all the time. You go into a hospital and there's some system that's being used to prescribe you drugs. You're going into a retail environment and there's things managing all the payments. And if any of those things go wrong, everything will go down and people will be very aggravated and the company could get sued, they could lose customers, or the entire product launch could be derailed. Our platform really helps people in those mission critical industries take quality really seriously, helps them do that, but again, with speed, scale, and quality, not sacrificing one for the other. As I mentioned at the beginning, I came to America right in the beginning of the dot-com boom. And in that time, I worked both in the sort of commercial sector. I did some work for the US government after 9/11, because that was one of the big projects we had in the office at the time. Sapient was very good at project management, very good at software development. We built relatively high quality products for our customers. But the one thing we always struggled with, and I think we struggled through it in many ways, was the testing and the quality side. Whereas on the development side, we would take our most experienced people and have them develop an amazing system, release it. When we went to the testing side, we would find the most junior people available and have them, quote, test the system without knowing much about it, because that's just how testing was done. Testing wasn't in those days a profession the way it is today. Agile was still a relatively new methodology. It had just come out, and the idea of doing testing up front and shifting left, these weren't even written down yet. These weren't even ideas yet. But I realized that one of the big impediments was the fact there weren't many good tools for testing. For the most part, the testers were relying on things like Excel and MS Word and written down whiteboards and very manual, labor-intensive processes. It's hard to believe, but they're still being used today, actually, which is ironic. And because I was a project manager / system architect for Sapient, I had been dealing with testing. I recognized it was the most unpleasant part of the project lifecycle. I hated having to do that part. And so because I felt that pain, and others in the company felt that pain, it seemed like there was a good gap in the market. So when I launched our first product that was called Spirotest, or is called Spirotest, unless you had a very big budget and you could afford one of the very big tools, expensive tools that even Sapient would pay for, you were basically relying on Excel and Word and whiteboards or paper or emails or things like that. There was nothing systemic out there to do that. We were one of the first. From that single product, we then evolved into a larger suite of offerings covering things like automated testing, risk management, agile platforms, agile planning, program management, things that were naturally adjacent to that first product. So that way we could expand our offering range. And also, I think with agile, people were moving from pure testing and pure development into integrated teams. So having an integrated solution that addressed the needs of the whole team rather than just a part of the team also made sense. So that was how we got started and how we, I think, scaled up a little bit after the first product.
You kind of mentioned the first product and scaling it. I'm curious what you would consider your MVP. Tell me about that first version of the product a little more, and I'm curious about how long it took to build and what sort of tools you were using to bring it to life.
We're in the year of 2006, so it's quite a long time ago. So the tools that existed then are not the tools that today, or maybe the reverse is true. There are many tools today that if I was starting out now, I would use that didn't exist. So for prototyping and coming up with designs, you would use something like maybe a Figma. None of that existed. So you have to throw that out. You're basically working with what was at that point second generation web technologies. So what we did is the first MVP was a traditional web application. That was one of the things we identified is that most of the legacy tools in our space were mostly client server. These were installed desktop apps you had to install. At this point, nothing's being cloud hosted. Everything's being self-installed. So we needed a technology stack that was one that could be easy for a customer to install on the server without necessarily being a system admin, an experienced IT admin. The MVP was, let's create a full version of the application, and there were three main modules. It was a requirements tracking part, a test management part, and the bug tracking part. Those are the three parts. And the reason we chose those three parts was the market leader of the time was a tool called Test Director. And so we basically said, let's look at that tool. What if we made an agile, more modern web version of that that's more lightweight, but we take the essential elements. What did we use from that tool? Because we only used about 20% of that tool. And let's build that out as the MVP. Enough that we have enough functionality that it solves the critical business need that was the gap in the market, but not oversolves it. I actually was the first developer, so I started it in around June of 2006. And within 6 months, evenings and nights, because I was a stay-at-home parent at the time, because in order to fund the company, because I bootstrapped the company, I needed to save some money. So my wife was working full-time. So we cut the daycare, we had young kids, cut all the extraneous cost out of the family, and start the company for free. So in 7 months, 6-7 months, we had the first version available. We also had to build a website, put some Google search ads up to actually get traffic to it. The first version went live in February. We didn't get the first sale until September. So it was a long 8 months from February to September. I think we got one sale by September. So those first 8 months, people were trying it and giving us questions and giving us feedback. So it wasn't like it was empty, but no one had paid cash towards it. It was, this is a great product. I like the idea of it. I installed it, but here's one thing it could do, one thing it could do. And so the question then is, how do you manage that first MVP to get from MVP to first revenue generating product? And I know Amazon Web Services, if you ever meet with them, they talk about an MLP, or most minimal lovable product. And I think it took 7 months to build that first MVP, which was literally minimum viable product. That's what went live in February. And to use kind of the AWS Amazon lexicon, I think it took another 7 or 8 months after that to get the minimum lovable product. Enough that someone would pay money for it, use it, recommend it. And it took 7 or 8 months to get that first sale. The next one came a few weeks later. So it was interesting. It quickly accelerated. We had many people coming to us in those early days saying, I really wish you could do this and this. And they still didn't buy it. That really wasn't very valuable feedback. It was non-actionable. So it's hard to distill down what someone's willing to pay for versus what someone just thinks is a really good idea. And you're going to be sabotaged by good ideas that no one wants to pay for. So you have to be very careful about that, especially in the early days. Probably even now, that's still a big problem whenever you have a product. But in those early days, it literally can kill the product before it launches. And I think what was the difference between the MVP and the MLP lovable product was certain customizations weren't there. People wanted to add user-defined fields. People wanted some reporting capabilities. And I think those were the two things that were missing in the first MVP, that once we added some self-service reporting, we added some ability to customize the system. Those were the three key technology pieces that enabled it to go from a concept that people liked to a product that people bought.
This episode is sponsored by Kiteworks. Legacy managed file transfer tools are dated and lack the security that today's remote workforce demands. Companies that continue relying on outdated technology put their sensitive data at risk. And that's where Kiteworks comes in. Kiteworks MFT is absolutely the most secure MFT on the market today. It has been FedRAMP moderate authorized by the Department of Defense since 2017. Through FedRAMP, Kiteworks' level of security compliance provides a fast route to CMMC compliance, saving customers time, effort, and money. Kiteworks MFT makes it easy for users to send automated or ad hoc files via fully integrated shared folders and email. Administrators can manage policies in a unified console and create custom integrations using their API. Did we mention it's secure? The level of security with Kiteworks solution is rare to find. Step into the future of secure managed file transfer with Kiteworks. Visit kiteworks.com to get started. That's KITEWORKS.com. This episode is sponsored by Cashfly. The web is a competitive place, and if your site delivers its content pixelated, slow, or not at all, well, then you lose. But that's where Cashfly comes in. Cashfly delivers rich media content up to 159% faster than other major CDNs. Through ultra-low latency streaming, lightning-fast gaming, and optimized mobile content, the company offers a variety of benefits. For over 20 years, Cashfly has held a track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery. While competitors call themselves fast or use cute animal names, only Cashfly holds the record of being the fastest and serves customers like Adobe, the NFL, or Roblox, where content is created by users and must be delivered in real time. For the first time ever, Code Story listeners can get a 5 terabyte CDN for free. Yep, you heard that right, free. Learn more at cashfly.com/codestory. That's CACHEFLY.com/codestory.
So then you say you've gotten to the revenue generating product, right? You've got the MVP, you're getting traction. How did you progress the product from there and mature it? And I think to wrap that in a box a little bit, what I'm looking for is how you built your roadmap and what sort of criteria or process or something that you were using to decide, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address with Inflectra.
So the first thing is there's the product roadmap of the initial product. There's also then when do you decide to add a second product, which really in some cases, is it a second product or is it merely having multiple flavors of the same product? And there's 3 different lenses I'd like to bring on that. The first one is once we had Spira Test, how do we decide what to do to Spira Test to make Spira Test better, sell more effectively, grow? When did we decide to add the other tiers of the Spira platform, which became known as Spira Team and Spira Plan, to address some adjacent use cases? And the third thing is, when did we add in the automation tool that's now known as Rapise? That's our automation tool. That's a completely separate product that integrates with the others. And why did we do that? So I suppose the first question is, how do we do a product roadmap for the first product? There's always 2 competing factors. There's the functionality that your customers, who at this point are now paying customers, want you to add. And they want you to add things that they feel are going to make their life useful. And customer feedback and customer-driven feedback is really important. And that's one of the benefits you'll have of having paying customers, is that they're going to renew a year later, hopefully. That feedback is quite actionable because they're incented to make the product better. They're probably not dissimilar from other customers that you want to get. So there's a good chance the feedback they give you is relevant. The danger, of course, is they do have their own biases. And if you're just solving their problem, maybe their problem is unique. So I think what you have to do is ask enough of your good customers good questions, and then find out what are the common needs that cross at least 3 or 4 of those customers. The second part of that roadmap will be, I want to add features to this product that attract customers that are not buying it now. And you get that from 2 sources. One is you look at your competitors, go sign up for a trial if they let you, go to their website, look at the screenshots. Is it more usable? Is the UI better? For a long time, people liked our Spira Test product's functionality, but they didn't like the UI very much. And so I'm not a UX designer. I did the best I could. And we brought someone on board who's a really good UX designer. And we redesigned the whole UX UI, which really helped a lot as well. So that was another sort of aspect. So looking at your competitors, looking at your customers, and then when you have prospects that don't buy, asking them a series of good open-ended questions. Try and understand why they didn't buy. Did they not buy any tool? Did they buy a different tool? What were the reasons you lost? So doing a loss analysis, that also informs your roadmap, because that's then adding the different functionality for the customers that you didn't get. So at that point, that's a really good way of growing and scaling a single product for a single set of use cases, making current customers happy, winning more customers that didn't choose you, finding what the negatives are, and looking at competitors to see what everyone else is doing. Probably at this point in the journey, trying to be a market leader by coming up with something wholly new may not be the most important thing. If you can do that, obviously that's great. That's quite expensive. If you're doing a bootstrap and haven't raised a lot of money like we didn't, that may be too much of a stretch at the beginning to try and come up with a whole new thing. So incremental improvement may be the way to go. Then the second aspect is, how do you take a successful product and then create either additional products, or really, in our case, it was additional variations of the product. That came about because what we realized, as I think alluded to a bit earlier, is that we were selling, and we still do, we sell Spira Test principally to QA teams. So the chief persona is the head of quality. If it's a large team, it could be the head of QA. It could just be the QA manager on a smaller team. Depends on the scale of what you're selling into. But in our case, it is a defined persona. It is the chief person responsible for quality in whatever size of segment we're targeting. But we recognized that as the world went to agile, people were looking at planning tools and tools that help make the entire team more productive. And so we expanded the range into Spira Team and Plan, which are 2 adjacent products. And they took on the business of agile planning, program management, project management, basically being a tool that you could use holistically to run an entire team across those different disciplines. So the testing team, the project managers, the developers, UX people, and that basically makes it a full-featured project management tool for system engineering projects. And so that was basically finding different personas, and that's targeted towards the chief product officer rather than the head of QA. So it's quite a different persona. And so we did that because we recognized the way the market was moving is that a lot of times QA teams were no longer working in isolation as they were in the waterfall days. In the agile ways, agile is going to require teams to work collaboratively together. And if you just have a test management tool that focuses on a QA team, you're basically selling into a legacy shrinking segment as opposed to a growing segment, which is agile teams. So that was the reason we made that choice. And then we basically had different flavors. It gives us the ability to upsell into larger products with a program management. So a combination of cross-sell and upsell reflected why we added those 2 other products. One is to cross-sell into other members of the team. upsell is to look across multiple teams where you've got people using the same product in an organization, having a slightly bigger product that can have multiple teams collaborate and work at a larger scale, and that gives you an upsell post. After you bought the product, come back a year or two later and say, your team loves using this product. We see some other teams starting to use it too. Guess what? This other version of the product lets you scale up your usage more efficiently and effectively. The third and final piece is adding another completely separate product that is not the same product into the company. And a lot of people don't do that. They stick with one product and grow that and focus on that. That may be the right thing to do. So when you look back, it's always a hard question. Should you have bought that product? It's been challenging at times to manage two different products, two completely separate products. It came about partly because we had a company we were working with that had an automated testing tool, and they offered us to white label it. So we started using that as a white label product because it gave us a secondary product that we could sell. And the reason we wanted that was we were losing some deals, not because the product we had wasn't good, the primary product, but what we were finding was that people were bundling the tools together. Some of our competitors were bundling the two tools together. And when the customers were looking at us, they would say, we like your test management tool, you haven't got an automation tool. We're going to go with the other company because even though their test management tool isn't as good, not as usable, whatever the reasons are, but ultimately we can buy both things from them, they integrate well, and ultimately you can't offer that. So we were losing deals on that basis, and enough deals that it made sense for us to have a product, and we white labeled this product from another company. Then lo and behold, they went out of business. And in terms of the contract, we were able to get the IP of the product free. We then hired their development team and expanded it and improved it and made it better and more tightly integrated it. So it was actually a gift we got. And then we used that to launch that additional revenue stream. And I suppose one thing to think about that is if you're going to start doing any kind of white labeling or OEMing or any kind of partnerships where you're reselling a product with your own name on it, make sure the contract's very well structured. Talk to an attorney. We were very lucky. We had done a good job with the contract. We had this ability that if they decided not to support the product, the IP reverted to us. We had the rights to build and maintain it. If we hadn't had that clause, we'd have had a lot of angry customers with a non-supported product. We'd have been stuck in a real mess. So I think when you start to look at doing things that are not built by you, when you're moving beyond just building a software product and releasing it, but you're actually going to be white labeling other products or doing partnerships, make sure you have a good legal framework in place because that can protect you from a lot of the downside risk.
Tell me about team. And I know you've mentioned some team a little bit at a high level, but I'm more curious about how you built that team. And what do you look for in those people to indicate that they're the winning horses to join you?
Sapient was a very strong proponent of culture over skills. And I've always believed that's true as well. If you find good people who are passionate about the work you're doing and fit the company's core values, and we have a defined set of values, then those people with the right tools and can be trained in the right skills can be phenomenal. If you just hire a bunch of people who have good skills but aren't necessarily culturally aligned with each other, you're not rowing in the same direction like on a boat. And when we've tried to hire people who maybe had the right skills but weren't a good fit, it's always been a disaster. So I would say our approach to team building and acquisition has been find the right people, make sure they're a cultural fit, and then find a role for them. And then, of course, if the roles change, the great thing is if they're a fit but the roles change, you can often find a different role for them. And as a company, we don't have much churn. We've had almost the same team. We've added people to the team. We've only lost a few people along the way, many for family reasons or other reasons. But for the most part, we've kept almost the entire team we started with. And that's been really great from a sort of sense of continuity and building a company that people want to be proud of and want to be part of. In terms of how you do that, first thing is understand what are your company's values, and that shouldn't be something that's boilerplate off a website. What is important to you? There are things that for us are actually very important. If you look at our website, you'll see the core values on there. One of them is great product, building for our users, not just following the latest industry trends, family flexibility. And when I started the company, one of the key reasons for starting the company was I wanted to build a company where you could have a family, raise a family, and people weren't demanding you be on call at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, and actually have a well-balanced life. Because that was something that was a challenge in the consulting industry, and I'm sure it is for anyone working in consulting today. And so that was a really important aspect. So, for example, we don't have any salespeople on commission. Everyone's salary-based. So that way we work together as a team to close deals. And that's quite different from the industry. So having those kinds of company values and having them manifest in how you hire people, how you reward people, and how you ultimately, if you have to let people go because they're not a fit, that as well. It's really important. That way your company is shaped by these values. It's not simply a bunch of words on a website or on a wall, which unfortunately is often the case. So I would say start with intentionality, define what you care about. What kind of company do you want to have, irrespective of revenue, irrespective of size? Make something that aligns with you. And it's different for every person. My values or the company's values that I put together may not be the same as yours. So make sure that there's something that's authentic to you as the builder of the company. And one thing that people have told me at the company when we do these annual get-togethers and feedback is the company takes on the persona of the founder. So if the founder writes down the values that are not authentically theirs, then they're never really going to stick. Because ultimately, if you manifest things that the company doesn't say it values, then it won't matter. So as a founder, define values that are authentic to you and the team you want to build, and then find people who fit that team and build that team around you. The other thing we've done is also we have an international business. So about 40% of our revenue comes from EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, 45% from the US, about 12% from APAC, and a few percent from South America. And so we have team members in all of those continents assisting clients in various capacities, whether that's pre-sales, support, or even development. And so building a company that's that geographically spread, despite being quite a small company, means you have a company culture, but then you have to overlay that on the different national cultures. And that can be quite tricky at times. You've got to build a team that can get on with each other, working in different politics, different regions, and that can be quite tricky. But what I often find is the company culture is that glue that brings the team together across those different geographies. And so when I go visit team members in Ireland or Germany or in Morocco or other places where we have team members, we all get together for a conference. Much as I see them as coming from different countries, there's a company like nationality, and we all feel close to each other. And it's very weird, it's amazing when you experience it, that we all get together, we're all intellectual people, and that's as much of the bond as it is where you come from or what language you speak or anything else. And so having that strong company team is really important, especially when you're in different time zones, because like in the Scouts, we can't always have people who are going to be available to tell you what to do. So if we have good people with good values who understand how decisions should get made, they can be autonomous and make decisions by themselves within reason, and that way you're not micromanaging.
This episode is sponsored by Cashfly. The web is a competitive place, and if your site delivers its content pixelated, slow, or not at all, well, then you lose. But that's where Cashfly comes in. Cashfly delivers rich media content up to 159% faster than other major CDNs. Through ultra-low latency streaming, lightning-fast gaming, and optimized mobile content, the company offers a variety of benefits. For over 20 years, Cashfly has held a track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery. While competitors call themselves fast or use cute animal names, only Cashfly holds the record of being the fastest and serves customers like Adobe, the NFL, or Roblox, where content is created by users and must be delivered in real time. For the first time ever, Code Story listeners can get a 5 terabyte CDN for free. Yep, you heard that right, free. Learn more at cashfly.com/codestory. That's CACHEFLY.com/codestory. Hello, welcome to the Data Analytics Club. Do you know the password? No, didn't know there was one. Do you know how to code? No. Do you know how to query data? Like, ask a question? I guess not. I see. Then you can't be in this club. Sorry. Goodbye. Don't be left out of the Analytics Club. ClearQuery is the Analytics for Humans platform. With their full suite of features, you can go from data ingestion to automated insights seamlessly. ClearQuery provides you with the information you need without requiring you to do the heavy lifting. Their Ask ClearQuery feature allows you to ask questions in plain English, helping you find relationships and connections in your data that may have previously gone unnoticed. You can even visualize your data with presentation mode, taking your data storytelling to the next level. Pricing is based on storage, not licenses, and that ensures that you get the most bang for your buck. Don't miss the opportunity to simplify data analytics, your data analytics, with ClearQuery. Get started today at clearquery.io/codestory. Okay, speaking of scale, I'm curious about scalability. And I'm curious about scalability as far as the company, but you hit that pretty well. I'm curious about scalability as far as the product. Did you build this to scale efficiently from day one, or have there been interesting areas where you've had to fight it as you've grown?
When you start writing software, you're trying to get something out the door as quickly as possible. And in the agile world, which we follow, you want to get something out that proves out some of the risks. So it's not entirely a prototype, but it's a functioning prototype that works well enough. And then it gets successful. And then you're on a sales call and someone says, I want to use this software for 10, 20,000 users. Will it scale to handle that? And of course, you don't want to say, I have no idea, because that's never a good answer, right? I have no idea. You don't want to say that. So you might say something like, oh yeah, we've got some clients using it at that sort of scale, or oh yeah, it's been designed to scale. And you're thinking like, we're using Microsoft technologies, we're using SQL Server database, we're using the IIS web server. Big companies are using those. They must scale pretty well. I knew enough database practices to normalize things and indexes, and members who joined my team are more experienced than me and they made those better. But still, in any given scale you're at, there's always going to be that first client that's going to want to go 10x or 100x of the scale that you designed for. Initially, that might be 100 users and we build it for 20 or 30. Then you get to 1,000 or 10,000. And big companies are the same. Oracle or Microsoft and all those guys, they all do the same thing because no one knows till you try it and no one's willing to really pay for it till you try it. So inevitably, there's a bit of firefighting and a bit of that. Yes, it should work. And then they try it and they run into some issues. And 80% of the time, it usually works fine, or 80% of the system works fine. And they'll find a few points where there's an issue. And then you can usually find creative ways to fix those and make it better. So, in theory, you should be able to build everything, test everything, and design it for scale. But then it might have taken 3 years to launch, and the product never launched, and the company never launched. So I think there's always that tension between when is good enough. And I think as long as you design the system to be refactorable in the industry terminology, and also well document it, design it somewhat well so it can be recoded and changed. And I think as a founder, especially if you're like me, you're a technical founder, there is a big temptation to not want to see things change. And if you're going to hire people who are technologists as the company grows, you're hiring people hopefully that are better than you in many ways. And that's the ideal, right? You want to hire people who replace you and do it better than you. But then you have to be very open to them changing the product. And there's sometimes I've seen founders fail because they're like, this is my baby, don't change it. I designed it this way for this reason. I've had people at the company say to me, Adam, I really want to change this screen and get rid of all the grids you designed and get this brand new grid in that's really powerful and fast and amazing. And they look at me like I'm going to go, don't do that. I'm like, that's great. I wrote that thing 10 years ago. It was great 10 years ago. Of course we should do that. Even if you don't manifest those behaviors, there's always a risk that people will fear that you're going to. They're like, oh, I can't believe we want to change all this stuff. The boss isn't going to like to hear that. So make sure that you explain to your workers, your team, that I'm open to everything. Look, we may not do everything, but at least come through with the ideas. I'd rather say yes to 10 things. Maybe there's a few things we won't do, but if you don't present me the ideas, I have no way of knowing.
Okay, as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built, what are you most proud of?
Proud of the team, proud of the fact we built this team that when I'm sleeping at night is able to function autonomously. I wake up in the morning at 7:30 Eastern US time, and there'll be a bunch of stuff going on. And I'm really proud of is the fact that those people who are working in that earlier time zone or the night before in Australia, they're all communicating without me and getting along, getting things done. I'm not having to be the bottleneck. So I'm really proud of the team and the fact that it can function autonomously for the most part and get things done and do things the way that they should be done. And that's just amazing. And the second thing I think is when I look at the clients we have, going to visit some of these clients, I get a chance to meet some of them. Going all over the world, to almost any country in the world, I can find a customer. And I'm thinking wow, someone in Australia is using it to do this. Someone in the Middle East is using it to do that. Someone in South America is using it to run a water company. Wow, that's really cool. I built this thing that I started 18 years ago, and you write some software, you hope it's going to work, hope people are going to like it. And even I would say on the bad days when a piece of software fails or there's a bug in our system or something goes wrong and people are screaming at you, and not screaming, but we need this to work. Can you please fix this bug as soon as possible? The other way I always think about it is, wow, this product is so important to these people that if it's down for a second or there's this one bug that we've introduced that we're going to fix that's not working for maybe half a day, it's that important to them that we have to do it. And that's actually pretty powerful. So I would say some of those counterintuitive thoughts keep you going, which is every business owner, whatever your size of company, there's always going to be those days or months or years where things are harder than you want, customers are more difficult than you want, or maybe the product's taking longer to release than you want, or whatever it is that's troubling you. Look for the silver lining. So when a customer's complaining about something, it means they care enough about your product to tell you. If a customer just canceled and didn't tell you why, or didn't complain but then just canceled, they don't value your time to give you the feedback. So I would say when I look at all the customers and the people, I think it's just amazing who's using the product for all these kinds of things. And I'm just very thankful that they've chosen to use it, and great to see the kind of crazy things they're using it for.
Adam, let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
One of the mistakes you can make, we have made at times in the past, I would say, is you can follow a customer too blindly. So you might have a customer that really wants to do something specific and they're willing to pay a lot of money for it, or they're willing to buy a large number of licenses, and you end up trying to change the product to make that one customer successful. And in doing so, you neglect your other customers. And we've done that sort of, not in a very big way, we've been quite careful, but that's almost happened a few times. Another mistake I would say we often make more on the less technical side is I think as technologists, we have this propensity to like asynchronous communication, not synchronous communication. So a mistake, what that means is sometimes you get a customer that's unhappy for whatever reason, and instead of trying to call them and try to understand why they're unhappy, we're trying to fix their problem. We're engineers, we're solution oriented. So a problem we often run into is we're trying to fix a problem we don't understand. So the first incentive or imperative or the first inclination for someone like in our support team or one of our pre-sales or even post-sales account managers is, oh, the customer is unhappy with something. Let me send them a bunch of emails to explain how I can make them happy. And what we often forget is that actually it's better to call them, listen to them, let them explain why they're unhappy. And at the end of the conversation, we actually might find out something completely different than what we thought. And we actually might find out how to make them actually happy. So I would say a consistent mistake that we make, others make, is resorting to email as the first response rather than the last response. Email is great to confirm something you've already agreed in person, but it's often the worst mechanism. So getting on a Zoom call or Teams or whatever platform, or even a regular audio call, is often the best way to deal with a customer, especially if we're trying to understand what their problems are. That's one thing I would say is a mistake that we often make, is jumping to email. I think following a customer blindly down what potentially a one-way street from a product standpoint is another mistake. Those are the two sort of consistent mistakes we've made over the years.
Okay, this will be fun, Adam. I'm curious to hear the passion in your voice, and I can already hear it through all of our conversations. What does the future look like for Inflector, the product, and for your team?
We stand at the precipice, I think, in some ways. If you look back to 2001, as I mentioned at the beginning, I joined the technology industry right at the cusp of the internet age. Everyone who'd been building software before that, and even at Sapient around that time, was building desktop applications. The internet changed everything. And then if you look to about 2006 and 2007, you get the social web, you get the next generation of major evolution, and then this Web 2.0, Web 3.0. But the Gen AI revolution that we're seeing, and it is real, and everyone always talks to me, is it a fad? Is it real? What are the use cases? It is the next major evolution and maybe revolution in technology, and it's going to change how everyone works. So anyone working in technology, whether you're a programmer, a tester, a UX person, the world is going to change. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be necessarily bad. People, I think, are afraid for maybe their jobs or what they like doing. The work you do is different. The roles will be different. But as we stand on that precipice looking forward, because that's going to require differences in how we do work, it is going to require different tools or changes to how tools work to support that. So for Inflector as a company, our job is to help teams be productive and also release at quality, at speed, and at scale. But what we've seen is things like co-pilots, tools around AI, around code generation, Gen AI specifically, but even documentation generation. A lot of the different facets that go in, UX, you can have AI that can read videos of people using a system and come up with UX recommendations. Even testing, ways to speed up testing. So every aspect of the software development lifecycle has the potential to be accelerated by different types of AI, Gen AI, or machine learning, and we're seeing that enter the marketplace. So as we see every part of the cycle speeding up, the question then becomes, what about the quality? And I don't mean testing, I truly mean quality. Our goal is to allow you to take advantage of those new AI technologies and improve quality rather than reduce quality. Because the risk is, if you use them incorrectly or use them in a way that isn't aligned with producing high quality systems, we're going to end up actually having, in some ways, less productive, more buggy, more unreliable software rather than the opposite. So just releasing something faster and it's worse is not the end state. The end state with AI should be, with the same number of people, or more people even, we can potentially release 3 times the amount of functionality with the same quality or higher quality at speed and at scale. And at Inflector, we want to help people do that. And so AI is going to be disruptive for us, our competitors, and our partners. And so what's exciting right now for our team is, how do we harness this new technology and to help our customers move to that next level in the way they're doing business today?
Adam, let's switch to you. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to, and why.
First of all, in terms of the people who I work with, I know on a one-to-one basis, the person I single out frequently is my friend Nathan. He works for McKinsey now. He used to work at Sapient, and he was the person who was involved with that testing project at the beginning with me. And he's the person who right at the beginning said, this software that we're trying to use is expensive, it's clunky, it's old, but it's better than everything else we've ever used before. But we can't afford to use it on every other project at the company. And I remember saying, I could write a much more modern version myself. And then he said, if that's the case, why don't you? And so he gave me that push to start the company. And I think everyone, when you're starting a business or a new idea, there'll be people who inspire you and people who give you that final push. And so he's actually been a person both who gave me that initial push. Also, during those last 18 years, whenever I need someone to talk to that's not my wife, because that can be, you want to keep home and family and work separate sometimes. He's been a great mentor to me, someone I can go to, and we can talk about what he's struggling with, what I'm struggling with. He's just been a really great person to let me see the bigger picture about something. And sometimes when I'm struggling, he'll say, think back to your values. How does that align with what decision you want to make? So Nathan is just a really great friend, mentor, and person to work with. And I always respect and work with him. And then there's kind of people that you look up to that you don't really know, necessarily personally, but you know of them. One person I think is really great in our industry is a guy called Jason Cohen. He founded a company called SmartBear, which is actually a competitor of ours now, but it wasn't at the time. He's CEO of WordPress Engine. He spoke at a conference recently. He has amazing things to say about scaling a company, building a company, and he has got a really interesting approach to how to do that. So I love whenever I see him speak or any of his videos or what he writes. And then there's sort of people out in the industry. One of the people that inspired me at a young age was actually Richard Branson, because in Britain, there's a shortage of role models around entrepreneurship, I would say. In America, coming to the United States, it's not the case. Here, everyone is in a startup or wants to be in a startup or wants to build a business. I think in America, maybe it's the opposite problem. Everyone wants to be in a startup, but no one wants to put the work in to do it. The opposite is true in Great Britain. Richard Branson and people like him, there's a small number, Alan Sugar in the UK, they really inspire the generation in the UK to start businesses, and they're on, Dragon's Den, the British version of Shark Tank. It's very good to see those kinds of personalities, I think, encourage people. So I think those are people that inspired me, Richard Branson at a young age, and then someone like Jason Cohen more tactically as you get into the industry, and then having friends and people that inspire you on a personal level to be your best. Those are kind of the three types of people, I would say.
Adam, last question. So you're getting on a plane, and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world, and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
Everyone has a great technology, and it depends where they are obviously in their life cycle. If they've already got product market fit, one of the things I try to understand from them is, what is it that makes you passionate about this? Is it simply the technology? Is it building a business? And try and coach them on understanding what are their goals from this, because some people really are obsessed with the technology they have, and they've got a really great tech, but no one wants to buy it, and they're banging their heads against the wall. And having some advice for them about understanding, do you want to run a business or do you want to be in tech? What's driving you emotionally? What's the reason you got into this? And I think the other thing I would tell people is, you have a great tech. It's going to potentially take off, maybe really quickly, maybe not. Persistence is a really important virtue that people forget about. That if it's hard at the beginning, there'll be months or years where it gets easier, and then it gets harder again. And that every sort of stage it's like climbing a mountain. Is the analogy I always think. You get to 1 million, you get to 5 million, you get to the next level, and beyond that. And every time you get to a certain level, you get to this plateau where it seems to get just a little bit easier, and then you look up and there's the next ascent. You're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know if I was ready for that. So I think I will tell them, understand what is the journey you're going on. Are you trying to build a big company that you want to take public? Are you trying to build a small lifestyle business? Is this something that you want to sell in 5 years? Do you want to build something you'll work for 10 years? So think a little bit of the end goal in mind when you start. And then the other thing if it's a very small new company, I also want to talk to them about their customers and how they're going to market. Because a lot of times I'll talk to people who are very excited about a technology, but they haven't really thought about customers, or they've had customers from a previous job, which they've got as their first customers, and they don't have a sustainable way to get new customers, because the first 10 customers were all former clients of theirs. To get the first 10 customers doesn't require a system. To get the next 10 customers every month requires a system that doesn't rely on your personal connections or where you worked before. So how do you build a scalable way to build a business, not just a product? Because I think a lot of times people focus on building a product, but they don't think about a scalable way to build a business. Now with AI and technology, potentially a lot of the tools that you had to build, a lot of the people you had to hire may not be as not as important, but not as many as you would have had in the old days. There's virtual assistants, there's AI now, which can reduce the number of people you need. So you can build a more substantial company with less people than before. So there are some differences. So one thing I would always say is that when I'm giving advice to someone who's young and starting out, there's that danger of giving them the advice that was true 5 years ago that may not be true today. So I always want to be very careful about couching it in that this was my experience, this is what I found to be valuable, this is the mistakes that I made, here's some things you might want to think about, but you are having a completely different experience to me. You started this business now, not 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The opportunities are different, the tools are different. So whatever I'm going to tell you next, disregard if it doesn't make sense, because I think that's one of the other dangers if you're giving advice to someone new, is you might be giving them incorrect advice based on where they are today versus where you would have been 5-10 years ago.
That's fantastic advice. Well, Adam, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for telling the creation story of Inflectra.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ12 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.